Deep Silver acquired Volition and Saints Row in 2013. Since then, they have held the rights and ownership of both the IP and the game. In my and many other fans' minds, this has been the worst period to be a Saints Row fan, and it only seems to be on a steep decline. I want to reflect on this period and talk about the relationship between its publisher and the game, talk about how many mistakes were made over the past decade, talk about my personal experience with Deep Silver, and aim to give a feasible solution to some of these issues if they are willing to listen. This one has been a long time coming, and I'm aware a lot of people have been wondering where I stand on this whole situation for a while. I'm sorry for the delay, but I wanted to make sure I got this right. Deep Silver saved Saints Row and Volition back in 2013 after THQ went bankrupt due to some poor financial decisions on their part. At the time, this seemed a blessing as THQ had been pushing for this different style of game due to GTA comparisons. Fans didn't like this new style, so THQ ended up shooting themselves in the foot more than anything, but the point is things were looking up. Saints Row 4 sadly seemed a bit doomed to failure due to THQ already pushing Volition to make it a full game at that point, so I imagine Deep Silver just wanted to get the game out and start fresh with something new. But as for Saints Row 4, it was relatively okay from Deep Silver for the most part. No major issues took place and the game released to a fairly moderate success, of course with a fair amount of fans claiming it not to be a true Saints Row game. At this point, Deep Silver's focus on Volition stretched into Agents of Mayhem, and this is where things seriously took a steady decline for the two teams. As Deep Silver kinda took the reins for Volition's first full project, there were signs that the game was going to become doomed for failure. Deep Silver, for starters, began marketing the game pretty badly, to be honest. All they got were constant comparisons to Saints Row for a game that in fact wasn't Saints Row, leading to them having to blatantly spell it out for us. I feel like a lot of people overlook this, but really let that set in. They picked up a team, made a new IP, and all people thought was, is this a continuation of the last game? As a publisher, one of the main jobs you have is to market a game, and people didn't even know what the game was. When you blatantly have to tell people this is not Saints Row, then you know you did a bad job. As a marketer, you should be telling people what the game is, not saying, guys, wait, this definitely isn't what we made before. Marketing was a real issue of Agents of Mayhem and led to its inevitable demise. But then it gets so much worse. It turns out with Agents of Mayhem, Deep Silver and Volition really struggled working together. In fact, Volition management were lying to Deep Silver about the progress of the game. Smooth, Volition. This was really messed up on Volition's part, but it was also revealed that Deep Silver were massively frustrating to work with. Constantly comparing things in Volition games to things in games with 20 times the team size. A large majority of this was also revealed through one of Flippy's recent videos that I will leave in the description of this video. I'll try and leave sources for most of my points down below too. So you had Deep Silver breathing down Volition's neck for quality of objects not matching studios massively larger than them, whilst also missing the fact that the game's progress hadn't lined up with what was mentioned earlier on. Deep Silver then found out about the lies months later and made Volition hard crunch to rush the game through instead of just delaying it. This left us with a buggy mess with half the scope of what was originally planned. They chose profits over admitting a mistake and fixing it so gamers got a better product. And then, big surprise, when you mix a rushed game with bad marketing, you get a flop. Agents of Mayhem ended up selling really poorly and Volition lost a third of its staff. This failure to me lies on both companies. Volition should not have been lying to Deep Silver, and Deep Silver should be a better manager of their products. But the overall point is, the first project the two teams really had together caused a lot of tension between the two, and this relationship would only continue to deteriorate as time goes on. This was truly the first sign of things to come. Now, technically the next big screw up from Deep Silver is the Saints Row 2 patch, but I don't really know where this one will end up. It's a big grey area right now, so I'll give you the short and sweet version and I'll link some more informative videos that dive a bit more into it as its own subject down below. The short version is Mike Watson managed to find the source code for the very buggy PC port of Saints Row 2. He started developing a patch but sadly succumbed to his cancer before release. Since then, Deep Silver have been in control and haven't communicated a single thing about this dying man's final project. This one hurts me to even think about, and there's so much more behind the scenes stuff I barely even understand myself. Once again, I will link videos down below, but let's just continue on to the next thing. So, with Volition struggling financially, they decide to return to their roots with creating games. This then would usher in the first Saints Row title released from start to finish by Deep Silver. Ah yes, the famed Saints Row reboot. Where to begin with this one? It's truly one thing after another with this title. So let's start with the reboot wall. Saints Row made a post of a pretty gangster looking reboot wall that was all tagged up, possibly by some gangsters. People had wanted this for years, they were waiting on bated breath. They wait, and then we got the Saints Row reboot CGI. A totally new cast of young friends with no gang elements at all, lame futuristic weapons, and honestly, it just looked like Saints Row was dead on arrival. Yet another major marketing blunder from Deep Silver. People saw it and immediately disliked what was shown. Some fans were even vocal enough to go to social media to try and show how this trailer missed the mark, at which point Deep Silver did something that will haunt them for their entire existence. A fan tweets out about being disappointed about the new Saints Row, and the Saints Row Twitter replies with a haters gonna hate gif. This was the final blow of disrespect the community would handle. Everyone like an army online rallied up against this, and the community manager of Saints Row was fighting to survive. This stuff is still brought up today. But once again, all these things are tarnishing the name of Saints Row and Volition, and yet they had nothing to do with it. People still to this day hate Volition for the haters gonna hate gif, and they didn't even fucking post it. I'm not gonna be the guy who sits here and says it's the worst thing imaginable, but the gif was just really poorly timed. It was blown up so much due to the bad trailer, and it was just a bit of a slap in the face. And whilst I know 100% the community manager did not mean it like that, it's just a real shame how it all went down. But it doesn't even come close to ending there. They then show some creators some private footage of the game that actually looks really good, but keep it from the public entirely. They then show the community more of this corporate content that they just don't want to see, and all of this was just not helping Saints Row's chances at all. And then, following this, we got some very mediocre trailers leading up to the game's launch. A couple good ones, but most were kind of just mid. They did a few good QAs where devs hinted at stuff like multiplayer returning and more stuff that never really happened, and the wait for that game was honestly terrifying. But, to be honest, it's not all negative. The one good thing I will give Deep Silver is they did follow through on the boss factory. This is basically a beasted up inauguration station. We got this for Saints Row 3 and 4, and we managed to get it with the reboot. This gave players an early look into some of the customization settings you're going to be getting in the full game. Think of it as like a demo taster pack for what the customization of Saints Row would be like. I would love to say that this was a perfect move, and to a certain degree, it probably was. But the one thing they managed to screw up was, what was it again? Oh yeah! They managed to have all of the full game's cutscenes within the game's files. Yep. So, months before launch, everything about the reboot started spewing out. Leaks were everywhere, full cutscenes were everywhere, it was a disaster. So then the game launched, and fans were immensely disappointed. We got a lukewarm, shallow, clearly trimmed down story, a game rich in only glitches and bugs, no cheats, no multiplayer, broken online servers, the list goes on and on. Just go watch literally anyone else's videos on the game. So yeah, total disaster. Deep Silver tried to cool the flames I guess online, but it's like pissing on a tree in a forest fire. It's too little, it's too late. But again, let's just keep proceeding. It doesn't even come close to ending here. It then comes out that Volition actually didn't plan for the game to be the way it was. They wanted a gang story going back to its roots, and yet Deep Silver forced changes consistently, and once again harassed them during development. And Volition couldn't even fight for creative freedom after the screw up of Agents of Mayhem. They were in no position to argue. Once again, this just killed the trust between the studios, but it only gets worse. The DLCs finally come around, and it's once again as broken as hell. Some people, myself included, couldn't access the content we paid for days after its supposed release. The start of the DLCs weren't great, and I heard Deep Silver gave Volition the bare minimum just to finish the DLCs, and not a penny more. This explains the shoddy cutscenes and the terrible missions, I guess. The details of the LARP DLC are even messier, but since I don't necessarily have any sources I can show you to confirm them, I don't want to engage in spreading rumours, but it's something I've heard a lot of people talk about behind the scenes. I know a lot of this is a put your faith in what I'm saying kind of situation. I'm sorry I don't have sources for absolutely everything, and I'm trying to stay as objective as I can about what I've heard whilst giving you the information I have. Shortly after the DLC's release though, Volition gets transferred to Gearbox due to how badly the teams work together, and the partnership between the two ends there. So yeah, Deep Silver released 3 games with Volition, and only one escaped unharmed, and that was Saints Row 4. Right? Wrong. Let's not forget about the wonderful re-release of Saints Row 4. We got the re-elected version to PC. Ah yes, a version of the game that looks no better and runs way worse. This was a shoddy port. It ruined mods, it had poor performance, and it just forced people to revert back to the old build. There really wasn't too much of a need to do this to the port. It just complicated things and it didn't really help. I don't think it was intentional to screw over the community here, but it did happen nonetheless. It was nice that they included all the DLC for free for anyone, no matter what version of Saints Row 4 you had, but in my opinion that also just makes people who did pay for the DLC a while back feel a bit silly for buying it if everyone else got it for free. Just another thing I think is a bit stupid really, but overall I guess it was kind of a nice gesture, but it was half-assed again. And I mean, I could go on and on about the fact that Deep Silver still haven't said anything about Saints Row since Volition shut down. We still didn't get a proper fix for the PC port of Saints Row 2. We still didn't get a proper fix for Saints Row 4's re-elected. There's just so many things here at play that never got solved, we never get answered, we never get help, we never get support. It just seems like Deep Silver don't care. And I don't think that's the case, but quite frankly, I think a Volition employee put it best. A Volition employee once said, Deep Silver really should just stick to publishing AA games. And honestly, I kind of agree. The last two AAA games I can think of from Deep Silver are Dead Island 2 and Saints Row, and they butchered both. Don't get me wrong, I think Dead Island 2 turned out half decent by the end of it, but it had what, a 10-year development hell? No excuse for that. No company should operate like that. And then on top of that, Saints Row, it was just screwed over start to finish. I mean, look at Agents of Mayhem. That was screwed over start to finish. They couldn't even make a PC port of a AAA game without screwing it over start to finish. It's not me trying to pile in on them, but it is just the fact. They don't seem the best to handle these AAA titles. Now, I do have some genuine advice for Deep Silver moving forward. They do own Saints Row, and I think it's best for me to weigh in, but before I do that, I want to talk about my personal experience with them. Now, honestly, I have got to say, for the most part, Deep Silver have been relatively chill. Most conversations I've had with them have been super nice, and I don't have a ton of negative things to say. I know this is not the popular opinion, but I don't think it's fair I act biased against them in this regard. I joined the Deep Silver Creator Collective years back, and they've been really chill with me over those years. Everyone I've met has been kind, supportive, and quite appreciative of the content. They hook me up with intel and opportunities like my interview with a Volition dev, for example, and yeah, I have no real complaints. My experience with Steph, who was the community manager for Saints Row, has been quite pleasant as well. I do know other creators have their issues, but I've had none for what that's worth, even if I do at times disagree with how certain things are handled. I want to briefly touch upon the Deep Silver Creator Collective thing actually, because this seems to confuse a lot of people, so I want to fully explain this. Now, I know I had quite a weird opinion about liking the Saints Row reboot. I get it, it's not the average opinion, and a lot of people online enjoy saying that this is due to me joining the collective. This sadly is just plain false, so let me explain exactly how the collective has worked so far. I don't know if I should be saying this, but oh well. I joined back before the reboot launch, and it was essentially a big group chat, bunch of creators, and nothing there was really happening. As time went on and Saints Row was doing its thing, things did become a bit more active. The only time I ever got asked to do anything was simple. When I get early access to the game, don't release any footage before the embargo date. That's it. They gave me an early access copy to the game, and I could do as I please, say what I want, speak my thoughts, but just don't release any footage before launch, which I thought was very fair. People seem to think that the Deep Silver Creator Collective is some form of cult where once you join, criticism isn't allowed about the games or the company. This is just plain wrong, hence I'm making this video right now while still in it. And more creators are in it than you probably know too. It honestly is just a good resource for information regarding the games. They never sway opinions, they never ask anyone to do anything really. To be honest, I often forget I join until they pop up with a game for me to try out. So to anyone who thinks my opinions are tied into this collective membership, you are wrong. I did my research long before joining about my creative freedoms, and it has never been pressured once. So I guess it's time for me to actually give some advice to Deep Silver going forward. To me, there's two options here. You either sell the IP or change your ways. These are the only two routes that will lead you to success regarding this franchise. It sounds harsh, I know, but it's honestly the truth. But let's talk about how I think you should change for the better as a company in this regard. To me, it's very simple. Fans need to become the heart of what you make. If you don't do this, you will kill the franchise. I think it's time you properly address fan requests. You know for a fact fans want a gangster game. It has been said to you online a lot. It's time for you to honour this and stop turning this IP into something it's not. You need to start funding the games properly and bringing back bigger yet more well constructed games. Don't give us these short ass campaigns with very little open world elements. It's just not enough in 2024, especially for a AAA studio. You should properly address the patch as well. Like seriously, this is not some product you're selling us. Stop doing your marketing silence and just keep people in the loop. You're not hyping up a new game by being silent and letting people speculate. You're just pissing off your core audience. I think whatever team you bring back should start doing the live streams again. I heard you guys were opposed to Volition doing those live streams, and I don't think that's very fair. Stop limiting the knowledge of fans. They are what make your games. You need to learn more about mod support and how important it is to the games, and incorporate them into all Saints Row titles going forward. And in fact, I think you should make an effort to incorporate them into the past ones too. Fans really do need to start gaining more respect for what they do. They are the heart of the franchise, but seriously, they need to be the focus going forward. But honestly, I would just settle for you guys putting in some effort. I could excuse all these fuck-ups if it was a I messed up big time type deal. But it's issue after issue and never is an apology given. You have lost a lot of fan trust, and you have a lot of work to do to get it back. And until I can sit here with a Saints Row 2 patch on my PC, possible remasters and remakes looming on the horizon, a solid new title with some decent features and characters, and I feel like the people making the games care about the people playing them, I do feel as if all hope is lost. I want you guys to succeed, truly. It hurts me to my core to talk so negatively about something I love, but right now, you're not. Enough is enough, it's time to change. I want to make a final statement towards the Saints Row community because it's something I've been meaning to say for a long time but just haven't, and I think it's important. I've been doing this for long enough now to understand a lot of people don't like what I do or the content I make, and I want to say that that's totally fine. I can live with that. But I want you to know that the only place my heart is in is with this community. You make these games extra special to me, and that's really important, and regardless of what people say and think, I do have your back, and my own to be honest. I'm a part of this community as well. I may have my screw-ups from time to time, and sometimes I just downright disagree with the large majority, but I only want what's best for you, regardless of what people say and think. 2024 is going to be a big year for the channel, and it's been a privilege and an honor to have you here so far. And hell, even when all these games fade away, and the devs go silent, and the franchise is dead, you'll always have AJ, talking about his stupid problematic franchise, even if nobody's listening.